when I first started on this journey, I assumed that mold would cause, I think what a lot of us think, respiratory
Yeah.
issues, itchy eyes, rash, kind of that first allergic type response. And yes, some people, especially I feel like the younger kids, a lot of times you'll see more of that allergic type reaction. But mold can actually mimic and hide behind almost any diagnosis and any symptom because it's an inflammatory condition. So it causes systemic inflammation across your body. So it can affect any system. And the World Health Organization actually labeled mold as the great masquerader of the 21st century, if that tells you anything.
Wow.
So it can look like and be behind anything, depending again on your genetics and your, just makeup and where you have some vulnerabilities, in your body. It makes it really hard for us to see because there's not one set of symptoms. Not everybody looks the same.
Buckle up for a new episode of the S.H.E podcast, the show where we have real and raw conversations to inspire and empower you to be seen and heard so you can create balance and everything you want in your life and business. I'm your host, S.H.E, and I'm excited to walk alongside of you on this journey of being seen, heard, and empowered. Welcome to the S.H.E podcast, Be Seen, Be Heard, Be Empowered. I'm your host, Heidi Schock, co-founder of HLH Growth Solutions, where we help businesses scale revenue through outside-the-box visibility and marketing strategies, also automation. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. You're in for a treat today. On S.H.E, I love talking to women about their journeys, about being seen, about being heard. And so they're here sharing their stories so they can empower others to be seen and heard. For me, it was a very scary journey. It was one that I'm still moving through as I evolve and grow, especially in my business. So I am excited to be talking with the women on this podcast, including my special guest today, who's going to share what she's doing, what she's up to, and her journey. So without further ado, welcome Aubree Felderhoff to the podcast. Welcome, Aubree.
Thank you, Heidi. I'm excited to be here and chat with you.
I am excited too. We've had a little fun behind the scenes. So I know for those of you listening, you're in for a fun conversation. So before we start chatting, Aubree, and we dive in, I'm going to just give everybody a little background about you. So
Sure.
Aubree is the founder of Mold Free Mom and host of the top 2.5% globally ranked Mold Free Mom podcast. As a board certified holistic practitioner and mold recovery specialist, she guides families through the entire mold illness journey. From first suspecting mold is the issue all the way through full recovery. A mom of 3 boys and former national champion collegiate gymnast and personal trainer, Aubree spent 12 years and more than $250,000 consulting over 30 doctors before finally identifying mold as the root cause of her mystery illness. I'm really excited to have you on, Aubree, because I've had mold issues in the past, and it can be very daunting and very scary, especially if you're, for our health, especially if we're going through something. But for me, more important and more scary was that I had 2 small children in my home. So can you share with us a little bit about, is this a journey that you yourself went through? Because obviously you shared a little bit in the bio that this is something you've been through, and now you're helping others. Can you share a little bit about what that journey looked like that got you here?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a long story that I'm going to try to chunk into a very short few sentences or paragraphs. But as kind of stated in my bio, I've always been very healthy. I was an athlete. I was an athlete my whole life. And then I moved into personal training for about a decade and lived and breathed health, fitness, nutrition, wellness, all of that. So I was always very healthy. And after I had my first son, my husband and I bought what we thought was our, forever dream home. It was a brand new home on a cul-de-sac. It was beautiful. We moved in. I had my second son just a few months after I moved in, and that's really when everything started. I started pretty quick out of the gate with pretty severe fatigue, hair loss, a lot of things that we thought at first was just postpartum,
Right.
just the typical postpartum. And so I went to just a regular doctor. And we tested, and it came back that I had pretty severe Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, so an autoimmune condition. And I had Epstein-Barr virus and a bunch of other things, a bunch of vitamin deficiencies. And so we started tackling that. And that started, to make this story really short, that started a 7-year journey where I ended up collecting dozens of diagnoses. I continued to get worse. I lost a lot of my hearing, a lot of my sight, most of my hair. I was having blackouts and tremors and seizure-like activity. I could no longer drive. I was in and out of ERs and specialists and going across the country trying to find out why someone that had been previously a collegiate athlete and running boot camp could no longer walk without assistance. I mean, it was very scary, very traumatic. And on top of that, at that point I had 3 boys by the end of this journey. All of my children were sick constantly. And we were the family that did quote unquote everything right. We did all the vitamins and we did the sunshine and we were outside every day and we, did all of the natural remedies and we just could not ever stay well. We were constantly sick with what doctor said was bad luck and weird things, but it was continuous. So to sum up a really long story, we eventually learned that mold was behind this. We moved from our home and left everything and basically started from scratch, took nothing with us. And I got about 70% better, and my family did too. But I really didn't thrive. I still had a lot of issues, but I definitely was functioning. I was able to drive again. I was able to walk again. I was seeing some improvement. I just never could quite get there. And a couple of years ago, in the home that we're in now, we did some remodeling, and unfortunately, it caused another mold situation. And so that is really where I thought I've got to figure this out because my family and myself spiraled down. And so I really, really searched for a different way of tackling this problem, found it, and healed fully. And from that, I really felt on my heart, and I had for a while, that God was asking me to speak up about mold. For some reason, I was somewhat ashamed of it. I kind of, in the back of my head, thought mold sounds gross. You think of mold and you think, I mean, I did. I thought like gross, dirty, someone that doesn't clean, someone that lives, in maybe an old house or a castle or, ancient. You don't think of someone that, I kept up my house pretty well and yet I was still struggling. It seemed to follow me. So anyways, I refused to do anything with mold, but I decided I'm going to share my story. And at the time I was running a business called Mom Intentional, where I was helping moms kind of on the latter half of my journey, helping moms to be more intentional with their time because I had a lot of grief about all of the childhood that I lost of my kids' childhood when I was on the floor and parenting from the floor and not able to be there. And so I wanted to help moms in that way. So I shared on my podcast, my mold journey. I just did a quick share. And I was inundated with people asking for help, just desperate. I couldn't believe the amount of people flooding me. And that's when I realized that this was not a problem that only I had, but that it was actually a much bigger problem. And so I started sharing more and more. And that eventually, pardon the pun, but molded my business into Mold Free Mom, where now I help families just like my family that were suffering and had no idea it was mold, all the way to recovery. So hopefully that was short enough.
That was great. And thank you so much for sharing. So I'm curious, I want to get into some things about how we can know if there's mold in our home, because going to the doctor, they may be like, everything's fine, but you're just not feeling right. Maybe you're not getting the extreme, because my question for you is, are there times where mold is a factor, but we're not getting the extreme health challenges that you had? So maybe we're just feeling fatigue, or there's things that are slowly creeping up, because I think do different people have different sensitivities to it, which will also, show up differently for different families. For example, for me, maybe I'm not seeing those extremes that you had, but I still might have an issue that I'm not realizing. Meanwhile, the doctors are telling me everything's fine.
Yes. Yeah, you hit on something big, and that's part of the reason mold can be so confusing and so hard to diagnose. But, you think about the flu or a virus that we're exposed to, and you look at everyone in your house, we could all have been exposed to the flu and we could all respond differently, right? Like one of us might have the fever and the body aches, someone else might have the stomach upset, someone else is fine. And maybe if they test positive for flu. So it's kind of the same thing with mold. It depends on your individual makeup. So your genetics, where your immune system is in the point of an exposure, how your detox pathways are, your hormone levels. So there's a lot of evidence pointing to the fact that men often, not always, but men often are slower to show signs of mold toxicity compared to women and children. There's a lot of reasons behind that. Think about typically women and children are going to be in the home more often than a man, not always, but more often. And typically, women and children are going to have lower amounts of testosterone. Testosterone is super protective on the inflammatory side of mold. And so, for my husband, as a personal example, it took 6 years before he really started showing symptoms in the home, where I had symptoms within, the first year, and my kids pretty quickly after, but we were in the home all the time. So there's a lot of reasons why people are going to look different. And I've worked with many people and many families where one person is very sick and the rest of the people in the home are what seem to be completely fine. They're not responding at all. Their body, because our bodies are made to detox, their bodies are doing a good job of detoxing and handling the mold, and they're not showing really any signs. But going back to your original question, I think I probably veered off a little. There are a lot of different symptoms when it comes to mold. When I first started on this journey, I assumed that mold would cause, I think what a lot of us think, respiratory
Yeah.
issues, itchy eyes, rash, kind of that first allergic type response. And yes, some people, especially I feel like the younger kids, a lot of times you'll see more of that allergic type reaction. But mold can actually mimic and hide behind almost any diagnosis and any symptom because it's an inflammatory condition. So it causes systemic inflammation across your body. So it can affect any system. And the World Health Organization actually labeled mold as the great masquerader of the 21st century, if that tells you anything.
Wow.
So it can look like and be behind anything, depending again on your genetics and your, just makeup and where you have some vulnerabilities, in your body. It makes it really hard for us to see because there's not one set of symptoms. Not everybody looks the same. And so someone might have, like, one of my big issues was the cognitive side. So cognitive decline, forgetfulness. I was actually tested for early onset dementia in my 30s because I would be driving and forget where I was. It was so scary. I'd be driving and forget where I was and have to pull over on the highway because I didn't know where I was going. Out of
Wow.
the blue, I would be walking and get lost. I had severe anxiety and depression that fluctuated. It would come out of the blue. I'd be fine. And then the next day I'd wake up severely depressed and it would just hit out of nowhere. Whereas my husband, his main symptoms were joint and bone muscle pain. So he would have a lot of pain where he would have shoulder issues. And then a week later, he couldn't walk and his knee was swollen. And then all of a sudden, his back would go out after sleeping, right? Like it doesn't make sense. And my kids had more of skin issues and asthma and some behavioral things going on, attention problems, ADHD type things. So everyone can look different, and that's what makes it so hard to pinpoint, especially in the beginning, because you want to go off of, a doctor's going to look and say, like me, oh, you have Hashimoto's. We're going to start you on a thyroid medication because that's your problem. When really the root for me was mold. It wasn't Hashimoto's.
Yeah. Wow. So that it's good to hear this because many times we'll get a diagnosis and they
Yeah.
treat that without going deeper into, okay, well, let's go. There's layers beyond that that could be the hidden root cause of what's happening. So treating that upper level isn't going to solve the problem, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Which is what happened with you. And it's interesting, and I can imagine frustrating on how severely it really hit you. And for 6 years, it didn't. Your husband wasn't feeling it. So I can only imagine. You're like, why am I feeling? Especially being so young.
Yes.
Forgetting where you are is very, very scary. Like that's extreme. Like I know we can all have forgetfulness. Walk
Yeah.
into a room and forget why we went in there. I think that's the lower end of the spectrum. But driving and forgetting where you were and pulling over, I can imagine how that could have made you that made you feel at the time, like very nervous about what's happening with me.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's very terrifying for sure. And to be honest, I thought for a long time I was going crazy. I was having a mental breakdown. I was having some sort of psychotic break. I mean, I really was especially because my husband wasn't having these issues and
Right.
my kids were sick, but it looked different. And everyone said this is childhood sickness, which, kids get sick a lot, especially when they're younger. I really turned it on myself a lot and doctors too. There are definitely great doctors in the world, but there's also, and this goes for anyone, there's also doctors that if they don't know what's going on, instead of saying, I don't know, I had a lot of doctors tell me you need a prescription for depression medicine and some counseling. And, or my favorite was after one ER visit, I had had a blackout and my at the time toddler boy was toddling around upstairs and my younger son was not walking and my husband came home. I was blacked out on the floor
Oh my
and
gosh.
they were crawling around. The baby gate was open. And I mean, he was very close to falling down the stairs, and I was unconscious. I was out. I
Wow.
had no clue. So we rushed to the ER. This has been going on for a while. And the ER doctor looked me in the eye and told me, "This is normal. You're a mom of two now, not one. You have to remember this. And you need to take better care of yourself. You need to take some naps, and you clearly need a better multivitamin." And that was his prescription for me is that I wasn't napping enough. He put me on a nap schedule because I was tired and I was probably doing a poor quality multivitamin. And so you can imagine what happens when you have that response to something such as blacking out at the top of your stairs and you're going to who's supposed to be the professional, the one that's supposed to help you, and he's telling you it's your fault that you're not prioritizing sleep enough. It starts to get in your head and it
Yeah.
starts to cause, I started to doubt and gaslight myself and think, this is me not being tough enough. Other moms are tired too, and they must be napping or sleeping better or eating more salads or, it can be a very hard battle and very isolating for sure.
Yeah. So how did you end up finding that the root cause, that the mold was the issue in the home?
Yeah. This is a pretty cool story, but it was kind of my miracle story. I was desperate. This was at year 7, and at this point, I mean, it was far over 30 doctors all over the place, and just diagnosis after diagnosis, and I was just done. I was so done. I had tried everything I could, but I was so severely depressed. I was so hopeless at this point. We had to hire someone to come drive myself and my kids around because I could no longer drive. And I felt like I was just a tremendous burden to my family. I couldn't even take care of my own kids or myself. And that's pretty hard, especially coming from who I was, which was a very independent, go-getter type A. Yeah, I had lost, what I felt like was my identity. And so I prayed to God and just said, "Hey, I'm done with this. Like, I don't understand the purpose of me being here and just doing this to my family. Like, what is the purpose of me? I'm not the mom that I'm supposed to be. I'm a terrible mom and I'm trying, but I can't anymore. And so you've got to either take me like in this or give me an answer. Like, I'm done." And then the next day he did. My husband was taking off from work because my heart had become enlarged. And so I was seeing a cardiologist.
Wow.
And so, yeah, he had told it was a new hire guy at his work that he was about to take off. He was about to leave to go get me because I couldn't drive anymore to take me to my cardiologist appointment. And the guy kind of pushed back, like, "Why is your wife going to a cardiologist appointment? Isn't she, young and fit?" And so my husband explained this mystery symptoms and this long journey we had been on. And the man said, "It sounds just like my sister-in-law in Illinois, and I live in Texas, who had mold toxicity in her home." And my husband's like, "No, no, no, that's not it. We had actually tested for it the first year that
Really?
I started going through everything." Yep. And so he told me, and I kind of pushed back, like, "No, we already tested for this. I know that's not it." And he's like, "I just feel like you need to call her." I did, and we ended up talking for 3 hours. And I had never heard anyone. I had at that point over 100 symptoms. I had never heard anyone that had such a similar story to mine, and so many quote unquote bizarre symptoms that affected so many different areas of the body. And I just felt like maybe I need to explore it. So I called the doctor that she had that was in a different state, Colorado, and flew out there with my husband, stayed for 3 days and did all sorts of testing. And yeah, it came back that it was mold toxicity, and that started our journey. But it was truly an answered prayer.
Yeah. That's beautiful how you got there. And also, I'm sorry that you had to go through all of that to get
Yeah.
to finally get the answers. So where is there something that can be like you tested in the home? It showed negative from what you shared. Did you did you retest and then it showed positive, or did it still show negative? Like how can people, now that they're hearing you and going, "Wait a minute, maybe I need to be checked or have my home checked"? What's the process? How can people, advocate for themselves and make this stuff happen where they can get answers if they need to?
Yeah, mold is so confusing and so big feeling at the beginning, right? And there's so many questions because mold it's not like a normal diagnosis of, oh, you have, I don't know, whatever, strep or whatever, where it's the cause is this, and we can see the cause and then we treat and it's done. Mold feels so systemic because, okay, if the cause is mold in your home, well, then we've got to find the mold. We've got to find the source. And that brings that, it's not just like an easy fix. So in the beginning, when I was tested and diagnosed, this was at the very beginning of mold even emerging as something that was on anybody's radar. I mean, it was what, 7 years ago now that I first got tested. It's continuing, unfortunately. The awareness and the testing and the treatments are growing. So more people are becoming aware. There's more knowledge. There's more studies on it. There's more acknowledgement on it. So it's evolved. But when I was tested originally, it would not be the test that I would ever recommend to my clients, and it's not the test I use now. So now, whenever I have clients coming in that are like me, a decade ago, saying, I don't know where to start. Do I rip apart my home? Do I get an inspector? I always say we test body first and we look at body. And so I use a blood test. It's a blood serum test that tests your body for mycotoxins. And it tests IgG and IgE levels, and that will tell us if you are in current exposure or if you are colonized or you have like a body burden. And what that means, it sounds scary, but what that means is if you're colonized, it means that you have had a previous exposure. It could have been in your childhood. It could have been college dorms are pretty notorious for having a lot of mold. Could have been a previous home. It could have been a place you spent a lot of time, like your work or the church or the gym or schools, unfortunately, are pretty mold laden. But that will show us if you've been colonized and you're not in exposure. And if you're colonized and you're not in exposure anymore and you're still having symptoms, that tells us that your body essentially is still, it's picked up the mycotoxins and the mold. It's stored it into protective areas. So it's no longer circulating through your body. It's stored closer into your organs or your fat, right? Because fat is super protected. We all know that because it's the hardest thing to get rid of, right? And so unfortunately, it's going to be stored there, and we've got to address the colonization. And that was really the last piece of my recovery that I didn't realize is once I moved out of my first home, I think I said in the beginning, I got better, but I didn't thrive. I didn't heal all the way. I definitely improved, but I wasn't healing. And it was because I had missed the colonization. I had moved, but my body had essentially become the moldy home. And so I had to get rid of that last piece. I had to get rid of that colonization in order to thrive.
Wow. So then, so I'm in Florida, and we have a lot of humidity, and the homes here, like you mentioned, mold, and people like every home probably has it because, we go through those areas of dampness and then dryness and dampness and dryness. For us, we can have signs of it where it shows through the walls. And that, unfortunately, when that happens, you've got a bad situation. And we want to be able to catch it prior to that. So I'm guessing you didn't have any of those signs in your home because those are visible things that you can see. For somebody that has gone through the journey of, okay, I've got tested, I know I have mold issues, and it's current, it's in the places I'm in. What is a step that they can take to start, not only taking care of themselves through your support, but also demolding the area if they can't move?
Yeah. Yeah. So I went through this twice actually in the home that I am in now. And you've got to get rid of the source, kind of like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
If you're just tackling the symptoms of something, but you're not going at it at the root, like I was for a long time. I was handling my Hashimoto's, I was handling my chronic fatigue, I was handling my hives, like all of these things I was tackling with, topical ointment and medication for my thyroid. But it wasn't getting better because the root problem was mold. So same thing, if you've got mold, yes, you can improve, you can do a lot, but you've got to tackle the source. And so if you have mold and you have mold in your home, you want to start there. You want to remove the mold. And it's very possible. It's very possible. I've done it, in this current home that I'm in twice. But you've got to have a qualified inspector to come in and find the mold, because if you're seeing the mold, so mold doesn't want to grow in a place where it can be destroyed, right? Like it wants to multiply, it wants to colonize, it wants to continue to grow. Of course, it's trying to stay alive. And so most often mold is not visible. Like I almost say you're lucky if you can see it, you have a starting point. But for us, every time we didn't have a starting point. We couldn't see it because it typically doesn't grow in light. It wants dark. It wants an undisturbed place where it has a food source and moisture, right? Water. And the moisture, unfortunately, which is part of the reason why it's becoming such a big problem, the food source often is building materials, lumber, wood, porous items, drywall with all of the cellulose fiber. It loves to eat that up. And then you've got a leak. Let's say you've got a leak behind, I don't know, a bathtub, a shower, something like that. It's leaking through that wall down that cellulose. It's got its food, it's got its water. It's dark, so it's going to continue to grow, and nothing is going to disturb it because we don't see it back there.
Right.
So you have to consider that even if you can't see it, like I couldn't see it, that doesn't mean it's not there. And you want someone to come in that's qualified, that's a vetted, qualified inspector to come inspect your home and to find all of the mold. And then they'll write a protocol on how to handle it, how to successfully remove it. Because a lot of people will see mold and they might hire, I don't know, handyman down the street. Or even worse, I hear this a lot, especially with the wives that I work with. Husband is like, well, I'm not hiring anyone. I'm just going to spray some bleach on that thing. And okay, spraying bleach is a no-no. We don't do that. I know that's what, grandma did or what we were told a long time ago. But spraying bleach, you have to think about if you dye your hair or if you've ever seen someone dye their hair, they're putting a bleach on their hair and they're changing the color, right? They're lightening the hair, but they're not removing the hair, hopefully.
Right.
Same thing with mold. So we're changing the color, but we're not actually removing any of the roots. We're just removing the surface color of it. And so that is not the way to go about it. You need a professional in there to remove it and to remove it properly. Because another thing that I've seen time and time again is someone comes in and they just rip out whatever it is that they see that has mold. And mold, by the way, mold is alive, but what it releases that actually makes us sick is something called mycotoxins. Mycotoxins are not alive. They're a molecule. They're similar to mercury or lead or like bleach. It's not alive. So we cannot kill these chemical molecules that mold is releasing. And the reason that it's releasing it, if you think about out in the wild, out in the open, there are a tremendous amount of different species, right? Different fungi that are out there. And so mold is given this defense mechanism of mycotoxins, and it releases them to kill off other competing fungi. That's how it survives and that's how it grows. When it comes into our home without sun, without wind, and without other fungi growing, it's releasing those, especially if it gets disturbed, right? It's its defense mechanism. And the only thing that is able to accept those is us. And we don't want that. That's what's causing the inflammation and causing the problem. So you need someone that knows how to handle that appropriately and set up proper containment zones to make sure that you are not just releasing so many of these molecules up into the air and making yourself worse. And unfortunately, I've seen that happen a lot. Someone will do an improper remediation. Usually it's a DIY where they don't know what they're doing. Her husband is just like, I'll just rip it out and spray something on it to stop it from growing. They don't take care of the molecules, which are not alive, so they cannot be killed by bleach or any other cleaner. And then that person ends up having pretty significant symptoms, worse after.
Yeah, I have to say, and I could be wrong, but tell me. I'm living in Florida, and I was born and raised here, so I'm a little probably more familiar with mold than many people in other states who now may have this problem or experiencing the illnesses like you had, or some symptoms. You definitely want to adhere to what Aubree is telling you. You do not want to play with mold. If you see it, close it and move on and call someone. Do not start pulling things open and breaking it open to see how far back it is. Because when you're breathing it in, it stays there. It doesn't cut, and it's going into your lungs and into your organs. And you don't want it. It's not easy to remove. So you don't want to be consuming that in any form of the imagination. And again, this is not a DIY project that you want to tackle, because she is 100% right. Once you start opening that up, it disseminates it spreads throughout your home, and it spreads into you. So breathing it in, as soon as you see anything that might be mold, just call someone. Don't allow your husband or any person that you know say, hey, I can do that for you at a cheaper rate. This is one thing in your home, because if you don't properly get rid of it, you will have a lot of health issues, and it will continue to grow inside of your home. You'll never fully get rid of it. And to keep opening that up and fixing it is costly, especially if you've done it once and you need to redo it. It becomes a high cost. And then you start having the anxiety that goes with it and the uncomfortableness in your own home. And you want to feel safe in your home. And if you're dealing with mold, that is one, that's one thing that can happen. You start not feeling safe. So make sure that it's handled properly. Proper remediators, they are licensed in this. They know what they're doing. They know how to enclose it properly. And they will tell you exactly what to do and not to do, whether you need to leave your home or not leave your home. You don't always need to leave your home because there are proper things that they can do to handle it for you. And they'll also be able to come in and tell you if it's mold or not properly. Right? That's another thing. So they may come in and go, no, we don't have to rip open walls. Meanwhile, you're ripping open walls, right? Yes. That's another thing. You want to make sure that you truly have mold. And the only people that can really tell you that are people who are properly know what they're doing. I know that's a long way and don't do this kind of scolding thing, but please take it from someone, me that's been through a little bit of it, and Aubree that's been through a lot of it. This is not one area that you want to try or you want your husband to do, or he should even be tackling. Let them listen to this podcast and say, please do not. It's worth the extra money. And many times insurance will cover it. So, and if you can't go through insurance or don't want to, some people don't want that extra, the remediators out there will work with you. So because they understand that this can be scary and not everybody has the resources available. So talk to them, be open about what's going on. A lot of companies will work with you with payment plans and so forth. I know from experience. So yeah, absolutely. This has been such a good conversation. And I'm really glad we're having it because I know for people in Florida, this is an ongoing thing. And we're going to have it here. In other states, they may be less versed in it. So the education is key. I know you have a gift for our audience. So Aubree, can you share what that is, especially for people that are listening and going, oh my gosh, now I need to know more. And I don't know what's going on with me and I want to get checked, but I don't know where to start. You have something.
Yes. I know that feeling all too well. And so I actually it's an 87 question symptom assessment. And so if that's you, if you're listening and you're starting to think, I don't know, some of this sounds a little familiar, or I have some symptoms that don't seem to resolve with treatment, or multiple symptoms in multiple areas, and I don't even know where to start. You can take my assessment. It's on my website. I think I gave it to you, Heidi, if you wanted to link it. But it's 87 questions. And so it looks at all the different systems in your body and kind of for clusters of symptoms, as well as your home health history, a timeline. It asks a lot of environmental questions that maybe you're not considering to see if we can start piecing together if mold might be a possibility based on how you answer the questionnaire. And then it will put you into a bucket. So we'll tell you how likely you are to possibly have mold as a root cause and what the next step would be to take based on your answers and where you land in that bucket. So it's pretty comprehensive, and that was an intentional thing. And it's free. It's just for you to gather information.
Yeah, amazing. So please go and grab that. We have it in the show notes. You can also go to Aubree's website, is moldfreemom.com. Am I correct there?
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Moldfreemom.com. Go check out her podcast at Mold Free Mom Podcast. You can find that on all your favorite podcast platforms. And we're also dropping all of her social media links inside the show notes as well. So go grab them, go connect with her. She is incredible, as you're hearing her today. She's been through the journey multiple times and she knows what she's talking about. So like I said, and I can't say this enough, this is one area you do not want to do on your own. This is not a DIY project. This is not maybe I have it, maybe I don't, let me go check. This is bring in a professional, reach out to Aubree. And it's a time not to freak out, right? Because mold can be very scary. Especially if you have children and you're like, oh my gosh, because our children, we want to keep them safe through everything. My daughter had pneumonia and I didn't know it wasn't from mold, but there's things that you can start worrying, thinking twice about, oh my gosh, when my child had this or they have this, and don't freak out. Yeah. Grab the 87 steps that she's giving you, take that and fill it out and then reach out to Aubree. And get educated. That is the best way to go. But the worst thing we can do right now is just freak out and go, oh my gosh, I have mold, when you may not. You may not. But if you do, Aubrey's going to walk you through it calmly and share with you the next steps and be on the journey alongside of you, which is key because we don't want to feel alone going through this.
No.
And
Yeah, I
chances are your partner doesn't know anything about it. Friends will give you advice. And you don't know how many times I've heard exactly what Aubrey was sharing. Oh, just spray some bleach on it. And I'm like, that is one thing I know not to do. Like, you do not want to be spraying bleach on it. That is what they did in the old days. And
Yes.
that's not, and you don't know if, especially if you see something, if you feel like I see a spot, that spot, if you're seeing it, it's big behind it. It's a lot bigger than what you're seeing, and that is not something you want to tackle. So, Aubrey, I want to ask you two more questions. One is there a fun fact of Aubrey? I know we've heard about the type A, the go-getter, the mom who's moved through it all and, to get on her health journey and what you've navigated. But is there a fun fact about you that we wouldn't know, maybe by seeing you on social or going to your website?
Yes, I think I gave you a few fun facts earlier, so it's hard for me to pick, but I'll give them a couple. So I love animals. So we have 10 chickens and 3 dogs. We did have a cat, but she got eaten, which is really sad, but I would
Oh,
like to get a bunny and I have 3 boys. So my house is mad chaos at all time. And that's the way that I guess I like it. And I hate chocolate. I cannot stand chocolate and I run from it. So those are probably
that's
my
crazy to me. I read that because she filled out, we fill out a questionnaire and everything. So we're all well prepared. And there was one thing, I hate chocolate. I'm like, you hate chocolate? I'm like, is it just because my son doesn't like chocolate ice cream? And I was sharing with Aubrey, he doesn't like chocolate ice cream, but he loves his Hershey. Like if I go to CVS or the store, he'll be like, Mom, can you grab me a Hershey's bar? So he loves chocolate bar, but he doesn't like chocolate ice cream. He'll go to strawberry, even cake. He prefer vanilla over or strawberry. So we always get creative, or cheesecake. We get creative on his birthday because my daughter likes chocolate cakes, but he prefers not. So, but you don't like chocolate at all.
No.
No hot chocolate for you, nothing. No.
No chocolate for me. I can do chocolate chips and things, but even that, sometimes I'll eat around the
Yeah,
chocolate
amazing.
chips.
And you don't have to buy eggs because of your chickens, right?
I do not have to buy eggs. We have way too many eggs.
If you need eggs, reach out to Aubrey.
Yeah.
If you're if you're in Texas, reach out to Aubrey.
Exactly.
No, that's so fun. I have a friend who has chickens and she gets eggs, but I think she only has two. I think she only has two. So yeah, chickens are fun animals. I'm a dog lover too. I have 2 rescues. One of them you saw coming back and forth.
Yes.
The other one we rescued recently and he's upstairs. But yeah, it's definitely chaotic with, and you have 3 boys.
Yes.
Wow.
3 boys, 3 dogs, all boy dogs. I have way too many men in my life. Yes, they're all.
This is why you help women right now. You're a boy mom. That's fun. Well, Aubrey, one more question for you. If you could have lunch with anyone, deceased or alive, who would it be and why?
Jesus. 100%. Yeah, I
That
would
was
sit down
easy.
there.
That was just
That's
like,
so easy.
I know who I want to talk to.
Yeah, I actually just talked to my youngest son about this the other day. I guess that's funny. It was already on my heart. But yeah, I would love to sit down with Jesus. I mean, who wouldn't? And just
Right.
talk to him, ask him all the questions. I mean, even what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, why did you make mold?
Right.
How
Why
is
are
my
we
grandma
fighting all these
doing?
things? Right. Why does
Yes.
mold have to exist? Like, what's the benefit of mold? Right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's really pretty outside, but
Yeah.
I would, of course, would have all of the questions for him and I would make him sit with me all day long and it would not be enough time, I know, but I would love to sit down
Yeah.
with him and just
I think
chat.
one day we all, there's some point where you'll have that opportunity, hopefully.
Yeah.
But not no time soon.
Yeah. Hopefully not that soon.
Lunch. We're up for lunch, Jesus. If you
Right.
you want to join her, just get on her calendar for lunch.
I'll clear it for you.
Yeah. So clear for lunch. So anyway, Aubrey, is there anything that you'd like to share, say that we didn't talk on or we didn't touch on today? I loved our conversation, but I want to make sure that we talk about everything that you wanted to share.
Yeah, I think you hit on it towards the end, but if you are concerned about mold, the top recommendation I would have is do not panic because when you start to get scared and anxious, your body starts to pump in that adrenaline, that cortisol. It's like, kind of think of the tiger chasing you and how you're running and you're sprinting and you're scared. And when that happens, your body cannot heal. And so if you are going through something a chronic illness and you don't know if it's mold or maybe you have diagnoses like I did that weren't mold, but you're just wondering and you're starting to panic, I know it can be scary and it can be overwhelming. And that's the entire reason I started Mold Free Mom was because I didn't have someone. I didn't know anyone at the time that had gone through it. And I didn't have a guide. And it felt as if I was never going to get through it. But, God heals and there's always healing available. And so I would just say, trust. And as hard as it is, try to remain calm and start to make very intentional and calm decisions to gather information. And then if that information leads you to believe, yes, this might be a problem, then reach out to someone that's been where you are and is where you want to go. I think that is so important to have a mentor or a guide or a coach that's already been through it because they can kind of talk you off the ledge and help you to follow steps that are intentional and calm and proven to work rather than you just like what I did, just ping ponging around and trying this and running over here to this person and panicking and chasing my tail. And I probably lost many years and a lot of money doing all the wrong things because I wasn't calm. And I don't blame myself for that. I didn't have that advice and I didn't have the right guide or the right coach. But that would be my top suggestion is just remaining calm and making, pray. I always say pray about it and then move forward and search for the person that's been there and is where you want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfectly said. Get your answers, but get them in a calm state. And if you're going through something right, and one key thing I want to bring to the forefront too is what you shared earlier, is if you're talking with someone, doctors, they go to school, they're taught their thing, and many of them will not tell you they don't know. Some will, but if they don't know or they're like they throw their hands up, not many of them will say that. They'll just prescribe you something or, tell you to take better care of yourself or get a new vitamin or a new mineral. If that's the case and or they're sharing something with you and you just have this feeling, it's not the answer. Advocate for yourself. You can advocate with them. And you can also advocate by yourself by looking for more answers, reaching out to people. Now we've got more resources than we ever had before. We've got Google, we've got ChatGPT. I'm not saying go to Dr. Chat or go to Dr. Google, but if you go research and going, I'm just not feeling this, there's things out there that'll say, okay, well, look into this, look into this, look into this, and it'll give you some starting points to go give you ideas of where to go versus freaking out. Because I know when we're not feeling well, we're exhausted, especially if we're dealing, we've got little kids, we're, getting off to school every day and we've got to be on for them. It can be overwhelming. So you're not alone. That's the biggest thing. Advocate for yourself, be empowered to be seen and heard and make your voice known. I don't believe this is right. I'm not feeling right. I feel like something in my gut is off, and reach out and connect and reach out to Aubree. She'll be able to tell you if it is mold or not, because she's got her every 87-point checklist that you can go through. And if it does turn out to be possibly that, she will be able to guide you. So if you don't know where to start, that is one place you can easily start. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But advocate for yourself, fight for yourself. You don't have to take the answers that you're given as 100%. That's the end of the story. Because there could be other things. And even if you are given an answer and you think that there could be underlying root causes, make sure you're just not masking it by taking a medication. Make sure that you're getting the root cause, because many times there's something further down that can be treated to remove the thing that you're seeing right now. If that 100% sense of how I said it.
No, it does. And you're so right, I think. And even for me, I assumed, thyroid runs in my family, depression runs in my family. And doctors, they know what they know, and we don't know what we don't know. If I knew it was mold at the beginning, I wouldn't have treated all these other things, but I didn't know about mold in the beginning, and the same with doctors. They're humans just like us. And if they haven't looked at this, they get no medical training on mold. It's not even in the medical textbooks.
Right.
So if they don't know and they tell you with absolute certainty, oh, this is what it is, it's this diagnosis because your family has a history of it, you don't have to accept that. You don't have to accept that. You can keep searching, even if someone of authority, like the doctor in the ER that told me I wasn't taking good enough care of myself and that was the cause, that was my fault. I didn't accept that. And thank goodness I didn't.
Yeah, thank goodness you did. Right.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be here helping others, and who knows how you'd be feeling. So thank goodness you didn't. And when it comes to this, this runs in your family, understand too that we have so many advancements that we didn't have back then. So what your family might have been going through, especially if it's colonization that Aubree talked about, right, Aubree? This
Yep.
could be something they were dealing with as well, but the information just wasn't out there. So
Yep.
understand that we don't have to accept either that this is genetic or that it's stemming from our family. Get more answers. That's all
Yeah.
I'm going to leave you all with. And Aubree, this has been such a fantastic conversation. I think it was so important to have. So I'm so grateful that you're here. I hope you get to have lunch with Jesus. I hope he gets on your calendar. If anybody knows how to make that happen, let her know. But that would
Not
be
too
fun.
soon though. Not too soon.
Lunch. We can do lunch.
There
Lunch
you go.
not too soon for the other. So yeah, this has been so fun. And thank you all for listening to Aubree and I. Go connect with her. Go to moldfreemom.com. Go listen to her podcast, Mold Free Mom, and connect with her. All of her information is in the show notes. I want to thank you, Aubree, for being here and for your time and for sharing your journey and your story. That's another thing, Aubree had said, she's helping people. She mentioned on her podcast one time, she mentioned what she was going through, and it opened the floodgates to other women reaching out to her. Your story matters. What you're going through matters. People care. And it can be easy for us to say like, oh, nobody cares about my journey or nobody's going to care about my story. There's somebody out there that needs to hear it. So, if you've gone through something and you've moved through something and it's important and you may have felt alone, somebody by hearing your story may be feeling alone right now. And by you sharing it like Aubree did and like she's continuing and doing it, I know somebody listening here is going, oh my gosh, I needed this. And I've been feeling so alone. And I'm glad I'm not the only one that's been through this. So I just want to leave with that. Be seen, be heard, and empower yourself to do that. So others, because you'll be serving and helping others not feel alone in the process. So Aubree, thank you for being courageous and sharing your journey and moving through that and helping other moms in their journey as well. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Heidi. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Be She podcast.